All right, we are live. Hello, nerds, and welcome to the Nerds for Humanity podcast. I've got Rick Kennedy from the Forward Party Texas on the show. Rick's been on before, but there was this kind of interesting Politico article that came out from a former Forward Party member making some criticisms of the party, and then Rick was very generous to say, hey, if you want, I'm happy to come on and talk about my perspective. And so I thought, absolutely, let's get Rick back in the show. So welcome back, Rick.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to be here.
So for those who missed you the first time you were in the Nerd Zone, maybe just start with a little introduction to yourself, and then we'll dig in.
Sure. Hey, nerds. My name's Rick Kennedy. I am located in Austin, Texas. I ran for United States Congress in 2018 and 2020 here as a Democrat. Was the Democratic Party nominee in both cycles. And, of course, lost both cycles in a heavily gerrymandered R+15, if not higher, in higher district. And after the 20, that's one word for it. After the 2020 election, I pretty much walked away, threw my hands up and said, this whole thing is rigged, and it's not rigged for people like me. I'll never have anything to do with politics again. And then I saw Andrew announce that he's going to start a different party, and I really didn't take any steps at that point. And for some reason, I went to the Forward Party website in January of 21. I noticed that Texas was having its first statewide meeting like 3 days later. And I was like, hey, I got nothing else to do. I might as well sit in and see what these guys are up to. 45 minutes later, I spun around in this very chair and I looked at my fiance at the time, now wife, and I said, oh, bleep. I've got to get involved because these guys are talking about the solution to the problem that stymied me personally, yes, but I don't want to play the victim here. But what has stymied our political system for as long as I've been alive, I think.
Yeah, and so you went from, hey, there's an event coming in a couple of days to you're now the interim chair of the party. Tell me a little bit about that journey. I should acknowledge that. Last time you were on with Bill King, and Bill's no longer affiliated with the party, as far as I know. Is there anything you can share about that? I thought Bill seemed like a great guy, so
Bill is a great guy, and I was sad to see him go. Actually, the whole incident's referenced in the Politico article, and we can talk about it. We can talk about it now if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
In the Politico article, she talks about the fact that Texas was, this is almost actually the beginning of this year, the party here in Texas was about to express support for specific bills coming up in the Texas legislature that would add an exception for rape and incest to the current abortion ban, which is just an outright ban here in Texas with no such exception. And there was, there was a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding, and there's a lot of debate around the whole national sets principles, states set priorities, and candidates establish positions hierarchy and the approach that we're taking at its core. And we, at the time, we were the first state party to try to announce a support for a specific piece of legislation that was going in or about to go into the process in this legislative session here in Texas. And there was a lot of angst about it, right? We're new, we're growing, we're going to make mistakes. There was a lot of angst about it. There's a lot of disagreement about it between some folks at national and some folks here in Texas. It really comes down to whether or not you believe the principles, priorities, and policies hierarchy and approach to this to politics is going to work or not. And I don't want to speak for Bill, but I believe at the time he felt we were in a position. He felt that this was not going to work, and so he tendered his resignation. I was his co-chair at the time, so one co-chair of the party thought it wasn't going to work. The other co-chair is still sitting here talking to you right now. So, so you know where I fall. I believe it can work.
So I guess maybe we won't speak for Bill, but there were other voices that were suggesting that policy should be adopted at least at the state level, in kind of moving policies up in that stack up to the state
Correct.
level.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And this is still an ongoing debate, and people even outside the forward party are still questioning our approach, which is absolutely valid and absolutely natural.
Right. So this in the current scenario, and thank you for laying it out about in terms of the principles, priorities, positions at the party state candidate level. That's very helpful in terms of a lens to understand how you all are looking at things. With the current approach, in that case, it is possible that the state of Texas says, hey, abortion is a priority issue.
Correct.
And then two Texas Forward Party candidates
Yep.
may have very different views on that. One may
Correct.
say no exceptions. One may say for rape and incest. Is that working as intended? Is that the design?
Well, it is the design. Yes, I can't say that it's working as intended, or that scenario it would be working as intended. Yes, you could have two forward party candidates vying for the same seat, say House District 46 or something like that. One with a position on abortion or climate change, whatever the issue may be, and the other candidate with a different position. And what I like to tell people is that the state party is not going to have a litmus test on our candidates. But a successful forward party nominee is likely to have a position on these issues that aligns with the majority views of their district. So, and it's important to keep in mind that none of the above is always on the ballot here for a forward party nomination. So if there's no candidate that, or, if there's only a candidate who's taking some extreme views that do not represent what we believe the majority of the people in the district or the state believe, then they're unlikely to get the nomination, and there would be no nominee for that seat.
Got it. And there would only be one nominee from the forward party per district. Is
Correct.
that fair? Okay.
Yep.
Got it. So how is that playing out? When will we start seeing forward party candidates out there?
Well, there's a couple of preliminary things that are happening now. Not necessarily in Texas. We'll get to Texas in a second, but I'm sure you've probably seen, or maybe I'm not, but I shouldn't assume, but you've seen that in Arizona, four Democrat members of the Arizona state legislature have announced themselves to be forward aligned. They are forward Democrats. Similarly, in Pennsylvania, two Republicans and two Democrats have aligned themselves as forward Democrats and forward Republicans. And what they're trying to communicate is that we're aligned with forward parties' principles and priorities, but we're still Democrats and we're still Republicans, and we want to represent my party, the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, but aligned with forward party values and principles. So if you want to know in Arizona, if you want to know in Pennsylvania what a forward incumbent might look like and what their positions on issues might be, you can look these folks up, and all you have to do is Google forward Republican Pennsylvania, forward Democrat Arizona. You'll get their names, and you can start to see what positions they're taking and why they're aligned with the forward party. Texas is a little different. The summer in Texas, as you can guess, it's about 109 degrees out there right now, or on its way to. Summer's a very slow period in Texas, but after Labor Day, it's really going to kick up. And the 2024 election cycle really gets underway after Labor Day here in Texas. And we'll be announcing candidates for seats in 2024. And we are in discussions. We're in talks with some incumbent electeds right now, as well as candidates to be potentially forward-aligned Republicans, forward-aligned Democrats, or forward-aligned independents.
What is the conversation with a prospective candidate like, especially if they're an incumbent and they already have some decent name recognition, and so they have something to lose? And why would they align with the forward party? What do they get out of that?
Yeah, of course. What they get out of it is by publicly broadcasting that they're aligning with our principles, they're stating to their constituencies that they are pushing back against extremism. They're pushing back against hyperpartisanship. They want to work across the aisle, work together to come up with solutions rather than simply fight against each other. And the Forward Party, that's what the Forward Party stands for, right? So that's that Forward Party branding, that Forward Republican, Forward Democrat, Forward Independent branding helps them get that message across.
Got it. And I would imagine some candidates would love to get help either with money or advertising
Sure.
or canvassing.
Yeah.
Is that part of the package as well? Or?
Absolutely. So they'll get an endorsement as long as they maintain their affiliation, their positions. They'll get endorsed. They'll get volunteer help on the ground. They'll get social media help, etc. So we will work to get them either elected or reelected, depending on the situation.
So what's your we'll kind of talk a little more about the Politico article, and then I'd love to also get your thoughts on No Labels Party.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely getting talked about as well. But on the Politico article, I think the general argument was, hey, the party's unwillingness to take a policy stance to kind of invert that pyramid and say, no, there's going to be national policy positions, makes it hard for prospective party members to really understand and kind of identify with the party.
Sure.
Because like you could be, let's say for me, like I care deeply about climate, poverty, whatever. And there could be a Forward Party candidate in my district who has very different views on those things than I do.
Sure.
Whereas like if there's a Democrat running in my district, I kind of know where they're going to stand. There might be some range, and similarly if they're a Republican. What's your take on? I know it's kind of a work in progress, but and you're still giving it a go, so you think there's enough here. Do you feel like there's going to be any adjustments, or is it really like, no, it's principles, priorities, positions in that hierarchy?
I never say never, right? But we are going to follow this paradigm till its logical conclusion, either successful or unsuccessful. I believe it can be successful, and I think what a lot of people really need to have patience for this to evolve. And to work itself out to get to the point where there are candidates in your district who are espousing policies, making policy statements on the issues that you feel are important to you. And sure, then you have the right to vote either for or against that person. But to expect a brand new party starting across the entire nation to emerge on day one, just fully formed, and especially when you're trying a new approach, is just unrealistic. It's going to take quite a bit of time. But as I said, you're already starting to see the evolution with these forward aligned people. As the 2024 election cycle rolls through, you'll see even more. And we're not here for one election cycle. Right. We are, my personal plan with the Forward Party of Texas, my personal involvement extends for 10 years. That's my roadmap for my personal involvement. I'm 61 years old, so I'll be in my early 70s by the time I hope I'm done here.
You'll be almost ready to run for president.
You kid. So it's going to take time for all of this to flesh out, and people are it's absolutely valid to ask questions and challenge.
What does success look like at the end of those 10 years in terms of what you'd want to have the party accomplish, or what should we look for?
It's very simple here in the state of Texas that we have enough forward electeds or forward aligned electeds to influence and perhaps even control the redistricting process in 2031, actually, the redistricting process based on the 2030 census. And drive some of the electoral forms that are the core driver for me and as well as most people in the Forward Party into fruition. So, getting rid of gerrymandered districts, et cetera. Ranked choice voting would be great. But for me, the root of all evil in politics these days is gerrymandering. So, if we can if we can get rid of gerrymandering or at least minimize it, that's a huge win for Texas. It's a huge win for democracy.
Yeah, it's kind of the original sin in many ways, the gerrymandering.
It's,
Yeah, a lot comes from there.
There's obviously been a lot of talk about rigged elections since 2015 or so, when somebody started talking about it. But elections have been rigged for time eternal. And elections these days are so rigged that here in Texas, for instance, we have 150 members of the House of Representatives here in Texas. Maybe 5 of those seats are competitive.
Yeah.
Maybe 5.
Yeah.
The rest are all decided in the primary.
Yeah. The sad thing is, I bet if you took a poll of the country, there would be more people who think the election was rigged because of suitcases under tables and some grainy video that's been edited versus gerrymandering. Like, a lot of people just don't, they may not be familiar with gerrymandering or don't really kind of understand the impact on them. It's not an easy concept to kind of convey versus like, oh, dumpsters of ballots were dumped in, were brought in the middle of the night kind of thing.
There's just as you say, there's no grainy video of a gerrymandered
gerrymandering meeting, right? Yeah.
And the sad part about it is they do it's done by elected officials in plain sight,
in broad daylight,
in legislative sessions, right?
So. Yeah. Now, I would imagine part of the challenge with gerrymandering reform is the people in power are the product of that system.
Absolutely.
And so changing it doesn't necessarily increase the likelihood of them holding on to their power. Like, it might make it harder for them to get reelected if their district starts looking competitive. Yeah.
That's the point. If here, I'll use the Texas House, 150 seats, every representative represents about 200,000 Texans. And the vast majority, about 145, are elected in their primary. And the average vote total to get them elected in their primary is 10,000 votes. So out of your 200,000 person district, you really need to appeal to 10,000 to get. So you're not answerable to the general electorate. They're answerable to that core, that hyper partisan base of their party. And there, until we can hold our elected officials accountable at the ballot box to the general electorate, you're going to continue to see two extremes fighting against each other with nothing much happening in the middle.
Yeah. 10,000 people kind of deciding the fate of a 200,000 person district. It doesn't feel super democratic.
Yeah, and it's not a random 10,000 sample either.
Yeah, right? Yeah, totally. So tell me a little bit more about how are you feeling about the Forward Party's progress so far? I'll be honest. I think a lot of folks who are watching this are probably former Yang presidential candidacy supporters. So they were very long on enthusiasm and wanted to change the world very quickly. This seems like it's taking a while. Like, as an example, I don't think has there been an official national Forward Party convention, or like
there is not.
Is there going to be one, or
there will be? Yes, yeah, there will be.
When do you think that'll happen?
I can't tell you. I don't know. I really don't. Maybe in 24. I don't know. Maybe not until 26. I don't know. I understand people's desires to change things quickly, but as we just saw in Ohio, right, with the vote on issue number 1 in Ohio, where it got voted down pretty dramatically. I was actually speaking with a supporter of that issue. And one of the reasons they supported it was because, and I don't know the exact number, but today you don't need signatures from all 88 counties in Ohio. You only need signatures from a half a dozen counties or something to get something on the ballot. And what drew them to support this issue was the proposal that you got to get signatures from the entire geographical area of the state of Ohio. And I thought to myself, that might have been an incremental step that might have been acceptable to the general public. But pairing that with at the same time boosting the vote total needed to actually pass it to 60% was just radical change, and it's too much. It's just simply too much for people to stomach in one go. So again, I fully understand that desire to simply just change things immediately, but certainly one valid point Mariana makes in the Political article is that our institutions are designed to move slowly and to evolve rather than support revolution. And that's not a bad thing. As impatient as we can get looking for change, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good reminder. I mean, if the system were easy to change quickly, in the wrong hands, people could do some crazy things. Like we've seen the extent that certain individuals will go to hold on to power.
We have
So let's talk a little bit, Rick, about one other thing before we chat about no labels. One thing I've noticed as a resident of the state of California is the Common Sense Party, which is affiliated with the Forward Party, has a very specific goal. They're like, hey, look, we need a certain number of people to change their party affiliation to Common Sense Party so that we can get on the ballot and be recognized as a party, and then we can raise money, da da da. So there's like a clear objective. There's a measurable kind of goal. It is something that I wish there was more of that with the Forward Party, so that people can kind of lean into something.
Sure.
And I'm curious, like, are there similar things maybe I don't know about them where it's like, okay, yeah, we want to get 10 people forward aligned in each state or something like that, or is there something?
There are some target numbers like that, but it varies from state to state. We would certainly like to have by 2024, we would like to have 25 forward aligned, either electeds or outright forward aligned or forward party electeds, up across the breadth of government here in the state of Texas. Everything from justice of the peace through county judge through the state legislature, a total of 25. So we do have a bogey that we're going after. Probably the more important bogey is the one that you just mentioned that Common Sense has in California, and that's ballot access. Because the other barrier that gets thrown up to a true democratic process is the hurdles that the Republicans and the Democrats across the different states put up to letting other people, other parties actually even get a space on the ballot. It's very challenging here in Texas. We have to gather 81,030 signatures in a 75-day period that starts next March 13th.
Wow.
I think the date is, right? It's a process. Get this. It's a process that was first designed in 1905 and has not changed substantially since.
Wow, 1905, they wanted that many votes in that short amount of time?
Oh, no, it's 1% of the gubernatorial vote total. So, it was proportional. But but it's an arcane and archaic system that ink on paper signatures, right? I mean, it's been challenged, and it's actually been declared unconstitutional in U.S. District Court. But that ruling has been stayed pending appeal, of course. So in 2024, as far as we can tell, we've got to do it the old-fashioned way, but there's every possibility that in 2026, we'll be able to gather electronic signatures online, et cetera, like the 21st century.
How often does a new party get on the ballot in Texas? Like, how often do they?
No, we don't.
It's like one of those requirements that nobody ever meets.
The Green Party has done it, of course. The Libertarian Party has done it, and that's about it, I believe. Yeah. I'm not sure if there's another party on the ballot here in Texas or not. It's a very expensive process. Let's put it that way. And
it's so interesting. Like I was at the supermarket the other day. I needed to buy some more toothpaste, and I was amazed at the number of choices I had.
Yeah, free market, right?
Right. And I was like, I don't know. Like, it's not just different brands. Each brand has like sub brands. So, but then when you vote for your elected officials, like you kind of only have, I mean, I'm in a district where whoever gets the nomination gets the win.
Right.
And the primary, I mean, we've had the same representative in my district since I think Clinton was first signed in as president, sworn in.
Yep.
And if she decides to run for reelection, she basically automatically gets it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's just it's amazing the contrast of choice
Yep.
between some of the most important things, which is like who's making the rules versus like what toothpaste you want to buy.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the No Labels Party. I mean, I kind of feel like they are, in some ways, cut from similar cloth. Like they want more choices. They feel like there's these two extremes and there should be a third way. And I'm impressed that they have raised some significant amount of money and they seem to be like moving things on the ground. Do you feel like they're helpful? Are they a competitor to the Forward Party? Could the Forward Party work with them? What's your thoughts?
I mean, we could work with them, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I'll only speak for Texas at the state level.
Sure.
We could work with them. They have raised tons of money. The biggest challenge there, and you probably see this in the press or at least on Twitter all the time, is nobody knows where that money's coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knows
Mm-hmm.
what the underlying motivation is. And my take on it is that they're simply repeating the sins of the past by trying to go for a presidential ticket to try to take this thing from top down rather than bottom up. It's today in 2020 or in 2024, I just don't see a path to victory for anybody who isn't a Republican or a Democrat, just the way things are currently rigged. I'll use the word, right? And I don't see them as having a valid disruptive path, if you will, or that has a high chance of success. I don't think they have a high chance of success in 2024. And of course, it begs the question, if they take a few tens of thousand votes here and there in key states, then, are they impacting the results of the election? I don't know. It really is the reason why we've declared that we won't run a presidential candidate in 2024 is that we know there's no path to victory for a Forward Party presidential candidate in 2024. And we want to let it play out the way it's going to play out. Again, we're playing a long game. We're not playing a single election cycle here.
Yeah. Yeah. With all that money and resources, you wonder if No Labels had said, look, we're going to focus on 5 purple congressional districts or 2 or 3 like big Senate races, and we're going to produce a few more mansions and cinemas that kind of mix things up a little bit. Like I find personally would be very interested in seeing that happen and just having, some more disruption.
Yeah. For me, that would be a much more, it would have much higher chance of success.
Yeah.
And would have a much higher chance of actually having some impact, positive impact on the environment. It's not the way they're choosing to go. Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk. I know we only have a couple minutes left, but I do want to chat a little bit about current events.
Sure.
We got 2 folks that are politically interested fellas. It's a weekend morning. We got to talk about what's going on in America right now. Let's start with the latest news that President Trump has elected not to participate in the Republican primary debate. And I believe he instead will be sitting down with Tucker Carlson for a live interview that will be counter-programmed at the same time as the debate.
Yep.
What's your take on that?
He is a savvy media guy, right? I mean, whether I like him as president, whether I align with his policies, or he is really good at being Donald Trump.
Yes,
right?
He is. Yeah.
And this is, if you look at it strictly politically, it's a brilliant play, because not only does he not have to be on stage with his competitors and answering to all of the things that are going on with him, he counter programs, so he's on at the same time and draws some of the audience. And inevitably, the debate that he's not at will still be about him. It's
Yes.
like,
Wall
it's
to
like,
wall Trump
you know,
coverage.
and is he doing his Republican Party voters any favors? No, absolutely not. But he's a typical front runner who knows they only can go downhill in a debate scenario, and
Mhm.
he's simply choosing to not engage. And do I agree with
Yeah.
it? No, but I mean, hey, he is who he is, and he's Donald Trump, and he's really good at being Donald Trump.
Yeah. Now I know some of my viewers are aware of my alleged Trump derangement syndrome, but let me just unleash a little bit of thoughts here. One is, 2/3 of Republicans are not supporting him. So it's not like, oh, most Republicans want him to be the nominee. Why should he go to the debate? Most Republicans don't want him to be the nominee. Therefore, in my opinion, he should try and earn a majority of the party's support. The second thing is, okay, even if he says, hey, I don't want to go, they're not worthy of being on the stage with me, to then have a counter programming event at the same time to purposely take viewership and attention away from the debate is to kind of suppress competition.
Sure,
You're kind of sucking the oxygen out of the room for
absolutely,
Christie and
absolutely.
all the others. So yeah,
Suppress,
it's
suppressing competition is what these two parties do.
yeah. Yeah, well, I
I
guess the
mean,
Republican Party is
it's
getting a little of its own medicine now.
well, it's in their blood. And I I'm here in Texas, and it's a heavily Republican state. People have just been holding their breath forever, waiting for it to turn blue, and it hasn't, and it's probably not
Hmm.
going to. And of course, everybody. Well, I'm in Austin, which is very deeply Democratic. Um, I don't. I question why, as you say, 2/3 of Republicans maybe don't want Trump as the nominee, and here in Texas, lots of people don't like the way the Republican Party's going, et cetera. I wonder why those Republicans, those 2/3 of Republicans, why aren't they questioning the other candidates? Why aren't those other candidates coming up with a compelling narrative to actually lock those 2/3 in and take the nomination away from Trump? Why isn't
Hmm.
the Democratic Party here in the state of Texas, after 25 years of losing statewide office races, just blam, is 0 for 25 years? Why can they not come up with a compelling alternative that actually wins?
Mm.
Right, because there are gaping holes there,
Yeah.
and there are opportunities there, uh, and quite frankly, one of the reasons why they can't is because they have to stick with national talking points, with national priorities. Beto O'Rourke is the best example. He ran
Mm.
against Greg Abbott. I've met Beto a couple of times. He's a great guy. I mean, he's a good guy. He was a horrible nominee for the Democratic Party for governor in 2022. He was coming off a failed Democratic presidential primary where he tried to run in the left lane.
Hmm.
That is not a winning candidate in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, they coronated him the minute he announced what he really needed. He really needed a good old blue dog Democrat to run an aggressive primary campaign against him and draw
Mm.
him back to the middle to be competitive. That's what he needed. Of course, he didn't get it. There were a couple of other names on the ballot, but nobody even campaigned, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, if these folks are messing with the system, if they're so bad, blah, 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 why is it that the other side cannot actually come up with a compelling argument to win?
It is a very fair question, Rick. Let's talk about one other topic, which is the likelihood of a Biden Trump rematch in the general. Lately, I've been of the mind that I think there's a decent chance that one of the two won't be the nominee, and maybe more likely that there's like a bigger chance that Biden wouldn't be the nominee. I think Trump's pretty much locked in. But with the Hunter stuff and with Biden's, health, it wouldn't shock me if he decided that, hey, I'm gonna have to pass the baton.
Yeah,
How would you feel about that? I would
I,
be super excited.
I'd be fine with him passing baton. I
Yeah.
quite frankly, I think he should have done it already. and
Yeah.
allowed the Democratic potential nominees to emerge and to engage. But again, you know, it used to be the old saying used to be that when it comes to nominations, the Democrats fall in love and the Republicans fall in line, right?
Mm.
It seems to have flipped. Right, the
Yes.
Republicans have fallen in love with Trump, and the Democrats are falling in line with whatever the party hierarchy, the party leadership wants. Um, the thumb on the scale against Bernie Sanders is another perfect example, right? It's really this rigorous hierarchy that doesn't allow for really any form of competition if it's not wanted. Um, Again, it's just another form of suppressing the competition, whether it's internal to the party or external in a general election.
Well, here's my hope, which maybe only 10% chance, but I would love to see Biden decide before the Democratic convention to step aside
Mm-hmm.
and then have a real open field for the Democratic Party nominee. I don't think it should automatically go to Kamala. And wouldn't it be awesome to have like a Gretchen Whitmer or a Buttigieg or some new energy
Mm-hmm.
and new choices? Like
Yep.
that would be super awesome.
Democrats have plenty of younger talent that could
Yeah.
step in and really mix it up in a primary process. And yeah, I agree. It would be healthy.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have a contested convention. That would
Uh,
be exciting.
I think that's the last thing party leadership wants is to
Yeah,
actually
the
have it go to the convention floor, right?
yeah, the political junkie in me would have the popcorn out for sure though.
Absolutely, for sure.
I have a few questions in the chat. Do you have a few minutes to hit some of
Yeah,
those questions, Rick? Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
So Jeremy Salmons, who's a channel member, supports the channel's operating costs. Thank you, Jeremy. I saw on the FEC website that Ford National reported 500,000 cash on hand. Is there any internal concern about running out of funds for the next election cycle?
You're always concerned with running out of funds, right? National's taken some steps to control burn rate, et cetera. I know that, and done some reorganizing. So I don't think there's any immediate concerns. And again, we're not trying to launch or trying to support an $80 million presidential campaign either. We're trying to build this thing from the bottom up. So you can look at the national FEC filings, and yeah, you can be a little bit concerned. But I think at the state and the local level is probably more important from a fundraising perspective than national at this point.
And from speaking as the chair of the Texas Forward Party, how are you feeling about the Texas
Always
finances?
concerned. Always concerned. We have a huge lift ahead of us with this petition drive that we've got to put in place next March. And I'm going to be nervous until that 81,030th signature is in
Yeah.
and certified as valid. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. And that's all there is to it. And we've got a huge fundraising lift ahead of us as well.
How much do you think you're going to need to raise to get those 80,000 signatures? And you probably need to go over that in case any are contested, I imagine. Is
Oh
my
yeah. I mean, the common wisdom is that you need at least 175% of the total.
mm, mm.
We're talking $1.5 million to gather the signatures and to get them all
Yeah.
validated. We're looking at some technology solutions, of course, to call out some of those invalid signatures right at the point of signature, so that we don't
hmm
save a few bucks, save a few minutes, etc. Are you registered to vote? Bang, bang, bang. Oh, no, we're sorry, you're not registered to vote. Would you like us to register you to vote?
hmm
Register them on the spot. If they don't want to register, well, we don't take the signature. The other gotcha is that anybody signing our petition cannot have voted in the Democratic or Republican primary, which takes place on March 11th, I think it is, next year. Not exactly sure on that. But if they vote in the primary, Texas is weird, right? Now, you talked about in California where common sense is trying to get people to
hmm
register as common sense register with the Common Sense Party. In Texas, we do not declare party affiliation when we register. But if you vote in a primary for either the Democratic or the Republicans, you become affiliated with the Republican or the Democratic primary for that election cycle. And you cannot do anything on behalf of a different party.
So if you are able to hit that threshold, then the next congressional election, you could imagine a slot for a Forward Party official candidate for some congressional district there.
Oh, correct. Yes. And I would imagine if we gain ballot access is the holy grail here in Texas, as it is in many states. If we gain ballot access, we will have candidates up and down the ballot.
Wow. That would be a huge deal.
It would be.
So when are those signatures due?
Within a 75-day period.
Okay. So you decide when you start?
No. By law in Texas, you have to start about a week after the Republican or Democratic primaries.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Which is around in the March neighborhood, around there.
March. I believe it's March 11th, but don't.
Okay. So you have a few months to raise some money, but you're going to need to raise over $1 million probably.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Is Andrew going to start flying down to Texas and doing a lot of dinners and things like that?
He's already taken one swing through, and we're hoping he takes another one here in the next couple of weeks or so. Yeah, I mean, we've got national support, right, between Andrew and Governor Whitmer and the members of the board and everybody else at national. We've got good support. It's just a matter of getting the message out and showing the value of that particular donation to what it means to politics here in Texas as well as nationally.
Is Governor Whitmer officially connected to the Forward Party now?
Oh, yeah. She's national co-chair with Andrew.
Oh, Whitman.
Oh, I'm saying Whitmer. Sorry, you put her in my head. You put her name in. Governor
I was like, oh my God, this is huge.
Oh God. All right. Can you edit that part out?
Well, we're live, but let's be super clear. You meant Christine Todd Whitman.
Christine Todd Whitman
from New Jersey,
yes,
not Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan.
You put the name in my head about 10 minutes ago.
But I'm sure you would be open to working with Whitmer if she wanted to get involved.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's great.
And Governor Whitmer, if you're listening, give me a call. It's fine. I'll take it.
Yep. I swear, if Whitmer got involved with the Forward Party, I'll do $1,000 donation on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yeah, we got me on record now. Yep. So let's see. Now this is I think 3-putt bogeys. We were discussing, hey, Trump's not running and he's not participating in the debate. And I've heard this from some of my, I have some family members that are in the of the MAGA persuasion, and I'm like, hey, why isn't your guy going to the debate? And then they would say, well, what about your guy? He's not going to his debate. And I'm like, well, typically the sitting president doesn't go to primary debates. Trump didn't in 2020 or 2019. So that's not a comparable statement, but I have heard that. What's your take? Do you think the sitting president, historically it hasn't happened, I think, since like maybe Gerald Ford or something. Right. But I personally think it would be good for the sitting president also to attend his own party's debates.
I think it would be good too, because if nothing else, it helps them practice and fine tune their debating message to get ready for debating against their opponent in the general, if nothing else, just from that standpoint at all. But of course, from a democratic process standpoint, it helps the Democratic Party voters choose the nominee that they prefer.
Yep, totally agree. So I think the short answer, 3-putt, is you're right that Biden should debate. We think he should. Be advised that historically sitting presidents don't, including President Trump, refused to debate in the Republican primary as well. And he's still refusing, even though he lost and has support from a minority of his party. Also want to thank Yoda Fanny, who donated $9.99. That'll help towards our streaming costs, so appreciate that, so we can keep this channel going. 3-putt out a second question is, thoughts on Vivek. He's getting a little bit of traction, I think, in the Republican Party. I actually saw a video of him rapping, which is super cool. He's, very smart guy, very articulate, sharp, can talk about pretty much any policy issue. Interesting, like my brother, one of my MAGA family members was asking me about him, and I said I think Vivek is running for VP. But any thoughts on Vivek?
They might all be running for VP, actually. No, everything you just said. He's young, he's energetic, he's incredibly intelligent, he's successful, he's good with the crowd, unlike DeSantis, for instance, right? He stands a chance to make a deep run, and maybe the last person standing before they hand the nomination to Trump. So
yeah,
if not this cycle, he's got a future.
Yeah, and if Trump won, I would imagine, and he doesn't pick him as VP, like cabinet role for sure,
Oh, sure.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Buttigieg path, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think we got through all of the questions, so I want to thank you, Rick, for coming on and being so open and candid about where you see the Forward Party, what needs to be done, what's going on in Texas, your thoughts on some of the criticisms. I appreciate you addressing them in a really authentic way. And, that gives, I think, a lot of people, in some ways, you're a good example of some of those Forward Party values. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity, Tom. I appreciate it.
All right. With that, we'll say goodbye, nerds.
All right. Goodbye, nerds.
See you, Rick.
See ya.
All right. Rick Kennedy from Forward Party, Texas. I like that guy. Someday I'll have to try and find a way to get some barbecue with him. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the Forward Party, my thoughts on the current state of the Trump run, the Biden run in a second. And by the way, thanks again to Yoda Fanny for the super chat. That's super awesome. Oh, Steve Jones, he knew. I did forget the outro music. Yes, hold on. Yeah, I kind of like that outro music too. It's very chill. Thank you for the reminder. And Yoda, thanks again for the super chat. Okay, so let's thank the channel members who keep this thing going. Yeah, 3-putt. We're going to get Rick back on for sure. In fact, I'm going to get Bill Kennedy, the former co-chair of the Forward Party State of Texas, who then decided to go in a different direction. He's going to be on the show too, because I saw him, he was blogging about the state of like US-China foreign policy. And many of you don't know this, but I actually majored in history as an undergrad with a focus on modern China after World War II. So I'm not an expert, but I know a little bit about the history. And I thought, wow, it'd be cool to have Bill on to talk about where do we see US-China relations going in the future. But before we get into my closing thoughts, let's do the thank you to the channel members. And we're going to start with our biggest member, highest level of support. And if you want to keep this content going, just click the join link on YouTube when you hit the Nerds for Humanity channel. And you can start for as little as $1.99 a month. And it does help us cover our podcast hosting and streaming fees. So I appreciate that. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you listen to audio podcasts, subscribe on the wherever you listen to podcasts. And then just in general, like and share wherever you can. So thank you to Soldier One, our biggest supporter at the senior VP level. At the VP level, we've got Kristen Slevin and Bike. And then thank you, Kristen Slevin and Bike. At the hardcore level, we have Gene, David, DK, Jekalego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Mickey, and Unkio. And then at the verified level, we have Lisa, Brandon, Sophia, Doris, Emerald, Ben, Ira, Elizabeth, Shoni, Dr. William, Karen, Mai, Brittany, Lori, Juana, Kevin, T, Jeremy, David, Nicholas, Mike, Zig, Roberto, and Jackson. So thank you to those members who keep this thing going. And I also want to just take a quick look at Of the People to see who is trending on Of the People based on recent approval votes. And if you haven't voted yet on Of the People, just go to ofthepeople.us, sign in, and then click the approve button by as many people as you approve. Right now, most recent approval votes have been going to Marianne Williamson, Katie Porter, Andrew Yang, Bernie Sanders, Cornel West, and Jimmy Dore. And if I filter it by all time for POTUS, we've got Andrew Yang, Marianne Williamson, Robert Kennedy Jr., Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, Gretchen Whitmer, Justin Amash, and then Joe Biden, Nina, Chris Christie, Amy. Where's Trump? Trump is right under Doug Burgum. He's probably one of the least approved people on Of the People. But if you like Trump and you want to move him up the list, just go to ofthepeople.us and click on the basically click on this approve button next to any of them. And I'm going to give also a shout out to the people who make Of the People possible, because that's an all volunteer effort. You've got Patreon supporters: Eric, Elizabeth, Tony, Aaron, Rob, John, Timothy, Jessica, Trickle Up, Travis, Muhan, Dylan, in order of support. And then our product development team is myself, Ian, Shay, Aaron, and James. And there's a lot of alumni who've helped put this thing together. And we're going to be doing a hackathon around Labor Day to add some improvements. I think we're thinking about adding the ability to post reviews of candidates, kind of like on Yelp for restaurant reviews. If you think that's cool, you can support Of the People on Patreon. And just share out the fact that the site exists, and it's kind of like Yelp for political candidates. All right. And thanks again to Yoda for the super chat. Now, some thoughts. 3 takeaways for you. Number 1, I think the Ford Party needs to show more traction. Clearly, they're going through like startup fits and starts. Understood. If we can get, in my opinion, some achievable milestones, like maybe getting Texas on the ballot, maybe, having actual forward candidates or more forward aligned, maybe starting to run some ad campaigns or canvassing initiatives, like whatever, the gerrymandering stuff. The values are important. I think the action is also important, and people want to see progress. So that's spoken out of support as someone who's donated to Yang many times and to the Forward Party, and I'm on a monthly recurring donation to the Common Sense Party. So this is coming from someone who wants to see the Forward Party succeed. So that's my take on the Forward Party. Number 2, love what Rick's doing in Texas. I suspect there are going to be some states where you're going to see the Forward Party getting more traction, and maybe that's where those of us who want to see progress can kind of focus our volunteer and donations. I tend to find the Common Sense Party be doing good work in California, so if you want to check them out, please do. They're very kind of reasonable, I would say moderates who want a third option, which is good for everyone, in my opinion. And they have a goal, which is they need to get a certain number of people to change the party registration, and then they can get on the ballot, and that'll allow them to raise more money as well. So Common Sense Party is something worth looking into. And then on the Trump-Biden thing, I really do feel like Trump is denying his the country and his party the right to choose their nominee by not only refusing to attend the debates, and he's not a sitting president, so there's no precedent for someone running for the nomination who isn't a sitting president to skip the debates. But then to do counter programming to try and draw attention away from the debates is even worse than skipping them, in my opinion. Now, here's something that Nerdstradamus will take a leap of faith on. there is a chance that Tucker Carlson's not going to completely softball this interview. There's a chance that Trump may want to be careful what he's wished for. Now, I'm sure he's had some agreement with Tucker's people like, hey, look, if the interview goes well, we'll give you more access later on in the race. And I'm sure Tucker's people will agree to that. Now, Tucker may say, you know what? I'm going to shake things up a little bit. Who knows? So maybe we'll have to watch both the debate and the Tucker Carlson interview and make sure our DVRs are working so that we can kind of see if anything exciting happens there. But let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen both at the Republican debate as well as in that Tucker Carlson interview. Will it be just kind of a puff piece, or will there be actual hard questions? So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, nerds. Have a great weekend.